So, hi, welcome to Wisdom for Menopause and Beyond. Here we are in a very, very exciting room today because we have more people in the room than we've ever had before, actually.
At one point,
Than
yeah.
ever we had before. Yeah. So, what we've done is we've kind of had that thought that, as you know, on this channel, what we're doing is we're talking about the things that we have picked up over our many, many years out there in terms of our experience and our knowledge and what we've come across in clinic and what I've come across with my coaching clients to see what things are kind of useful and helpful to women at menopause and beyond. And so, what we thought we'd do today is invite three other interesting and wonderful and exciting women who have opinions about that
And work with people.
and work with people at that time. And just we're going to go from there. Did you want to chip in at all, Anne, here?
No, I'll
All right.
carry on. How can you add? Can you add? So
Brilliant.
we've got three lovely women. We've got J Naylor, Tracy Bevan, and Jo Kodde, who is a GP, and they're going to introduce themselves and tell them all about the work that they do.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with you, Sarah. If that's
Sarah,
okay.
you go first. That's right.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me in. It's lovely to meet everybody. So yeah, I'm Sarah J Naylor. Let's put the J in there just to differentiate, because there seem to be quite a few Sarah Naylors out there. Anyway, I'm an executive coach and mentor, author, speaker, Insight Timer teacher, and Harnessing Happiness podcast host, although that's actually on pause at the moment, 200 episodes. And I am a former six-figure recruitment business owner as well. So helped thousands of people over a 36-year career one way or another, and met loads of people at different walks of life, but obviously a lot of people at sort of the menopause age as well. And I also have an alter ego who came into being. Or your audience ready for my alter ego is the question.
Just a quickie on the alter ego.
Oh, very, very quickly. I have an alter ego called Lucy Loves Latex over on Instagram. So we'll leave it and park it there. But it is and it all pulls together as part of what I believe is really, really important in life, and that is authenticity. I think when we are authentic and we're aligned with who we are and the essence of who that is, which I think when you get to a certain age, ladies, you start to kick that into touch, don't you? You really sort of embrace and embody that. And as you do, that really empowers you further. And then when you were talking about homeostasis, it's your body's natural ability to heal, but we need to do our bit to help that. And that is about what we feed in, what we feed into our mouths, into our brains, into our bodies, and that energy that we live our life by. And actually, if you embody what you are fired up about internally, and you don't take note of the people that want to pull you down and call you names or anything like that, you become more resilient, you become more powerful, your body's got more, I'm getting passionate, your body's got more power to really rework itself. And actually, even when you do get the aches and pains, you power on through all of that, because I'll be 60 next month, and I ran my first marathon at the weekend, and it was painful. I was out there with my partner, we were broken. It was 7 hours 17 or whatever to get this blooming marathon done. It was brutal, but we got there, we did it, we've got the badge. Well, not the badge, the medal, but it's about firing yourself up, but identifying that, not letting people pull you down. And that's what I integrate with my coaching clients across the personal, across the professional. That's why I wrote my book, Shining a Light on You, How to Manifest Your Dream Job. Because when you identify your talents, your passions, your purpose, your potential, and you fall into that, you become in alignment, that's when the magic starts to happen. It's why I trademarked my 8 mindset methodology, which, just to finish off, is acceptance, perspective, and energy. Because actually, when you accept what you can and you can't change, you shift your perspective, reframe things, and you channel your energy in a more positive way. That's when the magic happens.
It sounds lovely. I think we'll definitely come back to that with the reframing, with some of the questions we will go through later, which is really good. So if you could inject a bit of energy, Tracy, that would be really nice. It's very quiet now, isn't it? Yeah.
I'll calm it back down. I totally agree with everything Sarah says. I could just leave it at that. So important. I do similar things. I'm slightly different angle. I'm also a coach, but I'm a positive psychology coach. So that's the angle I come from I've got my own business, Positive Being Coaching, which I set up about 3 years ago now. And I work with sort of probably two groups of people, and one of them is menopausal women, I would say perimenopausal, because it's the time of transformation. And the other group is I would say those younger people who are coming into their own at the other sort of age, start of the their working life. And they're really exciting people to work with. It's at those points that you have to remember all those things Sarah's just mentioned, and find out who you are, because who you are will change as well. You are in a transformation. So you can feel really off kilter for a while, and you've lost your way. You can get stuck in doing things that no longer serve you, eating things, behaving in ways that no longer serve you. So my role as a positive psychology coach is to reignite that fire, to let people learn about themselves, understand themselves, redirect themselves on their path, and learn to love their lives again, love their work again. One thing that really gets me passionate is I talk to women my age. I'm not, I'm amazed that you're coming up to 60, Sarah. You look fantastic. I'm a little bit younger, but I have a lot of friends who are talking about retirement. Retirement, lovely if that's what you want to do, but what's that about? If you're doing the right job or the right thing, it doesn't have to be paid work, then you never retire, do you? And you do need that purpose. You need to have something that fires you up, that keeps you passionate. And that's what I'm all about, finding that thing for those people.
I must to say, I'm finding this really difficult because I desperately want to go, tell me something. So I'm having to go, there's so much I want to That's really good. And I really appreciate that, because it's these big changes that we're looking at that people feel nervous about, that want to go back. Because they don't like the change. So that we'll definitely come back to that. And then last but no means least, we've got our lovely GP, Jo. Tell us about what you're doing, Jo.
Hi, yes. So as you can see, my name's Johanneke, but that's because it's from Holland, it's complicated. So I go by Dr. Jo for most people. I've been a GP for about 18 years, qualified when my youngest was just one, or no, less than, was recently born. Was a partner in a practice here in Cornwall for about 15 years. And then in my mid-40s, life became a bit complicated. My daughter got very unwell with mental health problems. It was COVID. We tried to get her through it, and then I had a burnout a year later, as it happens, because you have to give all your energy to the situation. And I've been a trainer, and I've always been interested in mind and body overlap, and how life influences health. And at that point, then I had to do a bit of a deep dive into my own way of being, my parenting, my femininity or not. So because I had a daughter who was coming into her first period, and I went to a lady for support, and she's like, she needs a mother, and you are behaving like almost like a man in the way you're powering through, and the way you do life. And I kind of felt a bit, I don't know, tripped up, and I was like, well, but
hello,
that's what I do. I'm tough. And she's like, well, yeah, okay, but, and so I did a real kind of deep dive, and in hindsight, obviously, it coincided with my mid-40s, with my own perimenopause, hormones changing. So then I went on some retreats and looked into all sorts of modalities, spirituality, things that I hadn't really done for years and years, and realized that being a GP is a passion, but the amount of time is so limited that you have with people. And I started working in a private menopause clinic, and got an hour with people, and realized that just listening to the story for an hour and unpicking what's going on, and often emotional drivers behind a lot of symptoms, were more helpful than the medication that I was supposed to be prescribing. So then this idea of doing my own private work, where I had that more time with people and could really unpick their lives and the situation in a way that I thought was helpful to them. Then I came up with the body, mind, soul. I'm calling myself body, mind, soul doctor, proudly saying we're going to talk about soul as well, not just body, and not just body and mind, because
not just mental health. The whole
exactly.
Who are you?
Connected. Exactly. And also to kind of push the boat out with the doctors, with the profession a little bit, to say, why quantum physics is already scientifically proven, why are we not using that and applying the fact that everything's energy and everything's connected? Why we keep siloing everything? So yeah, I mix it all up, give it my own slant, and then kind of rediscovered myself. So now I do a bit of both, but I would love to grow the business as a body, mind, soul doctor more. I've done retreats, been on podcasts, and love to write a book about all of this. But it's all kind of work in progress. And now I'm this year things are a little bit on hold because I'm getting divorced. As just turned 50, and I'm really looking life in straight in the eyes.
You are looking at everything straight in the it was just 95%, so let's make it 150%, which is really good.
That's really brilliant. That's very lovely. It's a great room.
From my own place, I have moved out.
Great. So great room that we've got today. How fantastic. So we had come up with a few questions that we thought might be useful, because we've got this eclectic, exponential amount of experience in the room. So we kind of thought the first thing we're going to talk about is, what are the most common changes for women over 40? Now, I know it's not a very good question in a sense, because you can unpick any bit of that, but it's almost like, if you could think of something that either you've experienced or that most of your clients come to you with, or whatever it is, what do you think are maybe your top, your top one or two that you see most often, or that you've experienced? What do you think is important to talk about in terms of the changes for women?
I have to say, personally, for me personally, I was very lucky, and I felt that I went through it without too much of a ado. And I think, coming back to all the things that we've actually discussed, I think a lot of that is to do with your lifestyle and how you think and your mindset. But that's not to say that there are a lot of physical ailments. I've worked with women who have had to have the fans on full because they're so hot, whereas I used to go, oh, it's just a little bit of, is it just me? But it can impact when we start to look at working in employment, and the figures there, because I was doing a little bit of research before we came on, and there was a report that was done by the Fawcett Society. But I think there's some questioning around that as well, because it was only a small group of 45 to 55-year-olds, and there was only 4,000 of those. But they were quoting 14% felt that they needed to reduce their hours, and there was another sort of 10%, I think, that they will keep on being quoted. It's a sticky figure that they left the workforce, or but effectively it's impacting women's ability at work to either sort of do the hours, put the work in, especially when perimenopause comes in as well, because that impacts, and that goes undiagnosed because people don't recognize it, they don't see it.
Don't recognize it. I think what I pick up from you is that sort of women feel less, I can't. And there's a whole lot of I can't comes in. So I need less, I get less, I do less. And they kind of get
the difficulty that spiral goes down.
And I think, yes, there's the physical, but especially with that emotional. I mean, does that resonate with the others that they've got that less, is a lessness comes in?
It feels like you're almost at a junction, and you can go down that narrowing path, or you can start expanding, and it's those choice points, and menopause, perimenopause is one of those choice points about how the next 30 years of your life are going to unfold.
Absolutely.
And why not take the wide path? And there are all those symptoms, and they can be really difficult. I was very much awake for a couple of hours in the middle of the night, totally affecting my ability to remember names and things in the middle of the day the next day, which is really difficult. But I've read the research as well that shows in an accepted society where you can say brain fog, we all feel better and the symptoms aren't quite as bad. So, there's a definite sort of a confidence issue, and that's the issue that I find with clients most: anxiety and confidence, where you are starting to hit that wall, and everything closes in, because you've got elderly parents, you might be going through divorce, you've got teenagers, and you are just being squished. And work as well, and work.
Do you find that if you address people's confidence in that way, it really changes everything else? Because I think it's interesting when you said you're allowed to say I've got brain fog, and that's good. But on the other hand, if I'm allowed to be, I'm going to say a victim, and that's really hard because I'm not. That's not really what I mean. But if you're allowed, people go, therefore I can't, and get smaller. I mean, do you work with people turning them around, Tracy?
Yeah, definitely. But it's that balance. I think the biggest thing I think is loss of identity as well. So losing who you are. And if you were the competent person who could do a presentation, remember everybody's names for the first time that you met them, you feel that's taken away from you. But there is no harm in me not remembering that your name, you've both got a name beginning with A. I mean, alongside you all, everybody should wear exactly the same clothes all the time. Why are you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've never been able to remember people's names anyhow, and that was quite exciting. And I was when I was teaching a room of 120 students, and I didn't know which one to shout at.
I shouted them. I used to shout them all. I used to
you in the corner with the red on.
I used to just shout guys, and I was known as just, you don't know us, do you? And I no, but they were all right with that.
Yeah.
So it's very much
as not being a failure.
Yeah.
It's not a failure. It's just different.
It's using something different. So it's acceptance, but instead of acceptance and getting smaller, it's acceptance, reframing, and finding a way forward.
And Jo, what do you think? What are the most common changes that you see women in their 40s coming across, dealing with?
I think the same as Tracy said. It's the anxiety comes up a lot, and that goes with palpitations, it goes with panic, it goes with physical symptoms as well. It's definitely lack of confidence or loss of confidence, and which relates to the inability to do it all. And I think that relates directly to expectations that are cultural, expectations that have been put up on us from our parents, but actually that have been internalized as our own expectations of ourselves. And this ability that estrogen gives you to be nice, adaptable, pleasurable, and to be able to hold a lot of emotional heaviness, because having children is hard work. So you need the estrogen, you need the progesterone, you need the hormonal buffer to get you through. If that starts to slowly ebb away in your 40s, it's like the ground is no longer stable, and you're trying to hold on to that expectation that you've built upon having high estrogen levels, or with the help of estrogen and other hormones. But the stress goes up, your hormones go down, the stress steals away some of the hormones, so it goes down even quicker. And you're in this complete loss of ability to do the things you used to do. And if you're not allowed to say, can't, I don't want to, I can't, I don't care, I can't no longer go on a PTA or do this volunteering or do this extra thing, I think the women don't feel that they're allowed to say no. And it goes inwards. They become very self-critical, and they say, I was nasty to my husband, terrible me. I'm like, well, maybe he needed that. Maybe you have been tolerating something that you no longer want to tolerate, and let him take it. And you don't have to get divorced for that reason. However, if you're not even allowed to express how you might feel sometimes, then you're going to be squeezed, and then really it becomes this. And then I think the physical symptoms start to pile up more.
I think. Can I so interject just there? I think there's that acceptance as well of the self, that you are going through that change, and actually coming back to that reframing, that shifting the perspective, and to see it as an opportunity to step into actually who we are, who we're meant to be, because we're not supposed to keep on saying yes, are we? I mean, and saying no is empowering in itself. So once you reframe this menopause, which has been, it's great that there's more awareness around it, and that and more people are talking about it, but it's seeing it as something that's an expansion of the self, rather than, like you say, the narrowing of the path. Because it's an opportunity.
You do need to prune, and you do need to be a bit ruthless about cutting some things out, because I think
definitely,
that's the myth, isn't it, that you can do it
and
all.
It's great, because it's interesting, because we've all been talking about it as you were talking about all those different things, and I guess that was my challenge. What are the most common challenges for people? And it all sounded really like hard work, and then I'm kind of thinking, there must be some good things. There must be some good things at this time, and that was the second thing we were kind of go on to talk about. And I think, Sarah, you've kind of started that kind of conversation, which is like, what could women do at menopause and beyond to expand their lives? And I think, Tracy, you referred to that in terms of that choice, you know, if I'm going to take that wide path rather than a narrow path. So what about the positives that we could think about at this time? And what about, so Sarah, if you want to kind of expand a bit more on what you were talking about, that reframing, and then the other guys chime in and just see how that works.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always about looking at something, whatever it is that's being presented. I mean, Tracy's talked about positive psychology, and that's very much what I embody as well, is that it's looking for the positives, looking for the learning, looking for what's being presented, and taking the good stuff, and as Jo said, you know, hacking away at the stuff that no longer serves you. So if things don't feel right, I mean, as I reflect back, I got divorced age 39 into my 40th year, so it's probably all this times quite well, really. But it is about embracing new things, saying no to stuff, getting out there. I mean, I sort of started doing more, you know, getting more into running and exploring more stuff, my personal development. As I said, got divorced. Saw it as an opportunity to have a second stab at life in this lifetime. And actually, when you have this growth mindset approach and you embrace things, I mean, actually, when I got divorced, I did start to say yes to everything because I had to start my life from scratch again. When I say I went from a 4-bed house to my old bedroom with my son, I had to say yes to going out with my parents to the golf club or going hijacking my brother's social life because I had no friends. I had to, and the life I have now looks nothing like the life I led then, you know. So it's about...
interesting you say this, like this new opportunity, and I think I'd just like to pick up something that Jo was saying earlier, because when I see clients, I almost feel that they have to do, there's something they have to do. It's like a new age, new beginning. This is it. But Jo mentioned that because the hormones make us who we aren't as children, then we become an adult with hormones, and then we become an adult with different hormones. So it's not just I need another hobby because my children have left home and I've got a hole at 4 to 6 in the afternoon, which is, I think, how a lot of women look at it. And I know you're not saying that, so it's almost like that layer of hormones that makes us feel like, I don't want to do this. I mean, I do say to people, you know, when you're about 8 and you learn about what makes you born and you hear about mum and dad did that, oh, you know, and then when you're about 14 you think, well, that sounds like a good idea. and you kind of get these different, you know, the things that you're looking at and what you really want to do, and you want to go on a roundabout and spin circles, and then when you're 23 you think that looks a bit boring, actually. So it's not just a question of making a decision. It feels like growing, you know, when people say growing into yourself, but what you're saying, Sarah, is look at what I've been on a roundabout for 20 years and I haven't enjoyed 19 of them, so let's get off the roundabout. So it's more that. I mean, does that sort of fit? I know that was with Jo, so I've thrown it out there and interrupted your flow, but I was just picking up what you said, really.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know, interestingly, and I don't know how many women out there feel the same, or what, you know, what all of your clients have said. You know, I've got my own clients and people say, you know, I have conversations with them. But for me, I didn't know what I didn't know because I was completely unaware. And I now know that I was married to a narcissist. So therefore, I had been manipulated and moved around, moved away from sort of family and friends, which is why I sort of started out life from scratch again. But I just knew that I needed to make the most of this life. You know, there's an opportunity here, as I say, to have a second stab at life, but I didn't know. So I wasn't missing anything. And I knew I wasn't happy, but nothing reconciled at the time. And it's been a continuous journey ever since. The last 20 years have just been continuous learning about myself. And it's just, I continue to evolve. And as I say, when I'm 60 next month,
I think it's great, because I was kind of thinking that, you know, it's all about, you get to perimenopause and your menopause, and then it isn't like, oh, then that's the person you are for the rest of your life.
No,
because you continually change. And I was like thinking, you know, when I look at what I did in my 40s, what I did in my 50s, what I've done in my 60s, you know, and now, you know, coming up to the next one, it's just like, oh. And at the weekend, I did this exciting thing of taking the camper van out on my own, you know, so it's like, you know, and I was thinking, oh, that's quite nice that I can actually still think about doing something new and learning something new. So I was thinking, how does that link to the kind of positive psychology then,
yeah, I was
Tracy?
just looking at Tracy because I was saying, this is like finding yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how would you?
Yourself, yeah, and there is so much positives. I think it's a lot of the, having children, wonderful. I think it's a little bit like education. You don't appreciate it when you're 20. When you go back to university later, you think, wow, this is amazing. And I think, we had a lot of freedom before children, for those of us who had children, that we didn't necessarily enjoy as much as we might have done. And we're constantly trying to look better, be better, make the right friends. You don't care so much out this end. There's just you and death. So get on with it.
Yeah.
So you really explore all those things ideas, dreams, hopes that you put on the shelves, the things you're interested in when you were younger, and you get them out, and you've not got the same fears about giving them a go. And so I've got a secret identity as well, Sarah. I've just started stand-up comedy. So I've just started doing that. And I love it. But more than that, I love the comedy improv. I do that too. That's just really like warm, and it just makes me feel better.
Yeah.
It just lifts my spirits.
Yeah.
So
wow.
They need more female comics on the circuit, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness, they do. They are still out there, those men. Honestly, they're quite scary.
So just from your personal perspective, what was the sort of triggers? And I'm not trying to follow your life so much as what is it that somebody should, if they thought, gosh, I'm perimenopausal, what's that thing that they should look at? I mean, is it following their belly? Is it being inspired? Is it the small whisper? What
would encourage them to do the wide path?
So the work I do is to look at strengths and values, sort of go back to those basics, and the whispers are there. Everybody has that wisdom within them, and definitely the what Jo was talking about with the soul things, because those are the things that matter. So you're listening out for those whispers, and you're noticing, finding out about what makes you happy. Like people say, oh, do a gratitude journal, that'll help. It doesn't help me. I could do a gratitude journal till I'm blue in the face. I'm not a grateful person. It's okay when I feel okay. If I feel down, my number one strength is humor. So it's making people laugh and just seeing smiling faces around me. So that's what I have to dig into. And I could leave it in how I used it all the way through my life, which is to make people gel, bring people together, put people at ease. But I can take that further, and I can start using it in public speaking. I can start using it in comedy. And so that's what I've been doing. And those are things that have terrified me all the way through my adult life, that have held me back in my jobs all the way through my adult life, because I hate standing up and talking in front of people. But I'm doing it now. So it's exploring what that is for you. And it could be that you want to be the best grandmother ever, and that you want to spend time with you. It doesn't have to be.
But it's that little whisper you're talking about. And I can remember Wayne Dyer said, never die with the song still inside you. Even if you've got a bad voice, sing your song. I think it's just that look. Do you find something similar, Jo? I mean, is something? I mean, would you find that expansion? Yeah. How do you get people? Because especially as a doctor, people just go HRT, relieve my symptoms, hold me back, give me a blocker, just let me be 40 for the rest of my life. How do you cope with that? That's amazing.
Well, people first of all usually come with their symptoms. I'm anxious, or I'm hot, or it's horrible. They kind of offload a load of symptoms, and then they're kind of looking at you, hoping you might come up with a fix that is easy to apply and doesn't take too much. But then not everybody, or more people than a lot of doctors currently seem to think, necessarily want the HRT. They just have heard, and they almost feel obliged now, because you're not looking after yourself if you're not on it. It seems to be the whisper that a lot of celebrities or people seem to be putting out there, which is nonsense. If you're healthy and well and happy and have good homeostasis and natural healing ability, you don't need it. It's not like men need it, so we're not like children need it. So why would we need it post-menopausal? I think the first thing is then to unpeel a load of layers. So I will ask, what do you do? Who are you married to? Who's at home? What are your responsibilities? So kind of that whole layer of stuff. And then the last thing, what I won't do is say you have to choose something new to add. But I always say, what can you take away first? You're working full time. Really? Do you need to? Do you need financially? Do you enjoy it? Yeah. So that's why I've kind of done the body is my entrance point often. And then mind or emotions are the layers in between that usually have a lot of impact on the physical symptoms. But eventually we get to the soul, which is the spark, the fire. And that is when you then uncover this source, which kind of never dries up once you rekindle it, or that's it's the wrong metaphor, but the source that keeps bubbling up. And but it's quite hard to do that in 10-minute consultation. However, I always overrun, and I usually make people come back, and I tend to say, look at your life, and how desperate are you? Have you not slept for 3 months? Well, maybe you need some HRT to get you out of this pickle. Or, if you can't function, if you're on your knees, if you're crying all the time, we can give you something, but see it as a temporary measure so that you can get the clarity you need to make those big life choices, and see it as an opportunity. That's what I always say. It might feel horrible and terrible, difficult, but it's an amazing opportunity to go back to the core of who you are. And most people can hear that if you just talk to them openly and say, there's nothing wrong with you. However, there may be some expectations that need to change.
I do like that. I love the fact that you shed things first. Do you know what I mean? Or you look at, I can add that, but sometimes it just feels like if you give me a matchbox to carry, I'm going to fall over because I've got so much. It's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. So that's nice. I also agree I think people recognize the truth. When somebody is told it resonates with the soul, as you're saying. It's like if you said to somebody, go and be a stand-up comedian, it will change your life, and they go, oh no. And someone else will go, do you know what, this has been a dream for me for so long, how did you know? It's kind of it's that the truth resonates, doesn't it? It's just got that resonation, which is really but I do like that takeout.
And the other area that I found that is often untapped or unrecognized is the emotional how should I say this nicely? Backlog, that people have, and
where they colonic.
I would say shit show, or sewage
whatever. Yeah, we're among friends here.
On top of they pile guilt and shame and stuff on top of already being up to here with stress. And because I don't see the people, I do see the people that have an easy ride because they're like, my friends will tell me on HRT. I'm like, no, you don't. Off you go. Those are the easy ones. But the people who usually come and take more time are the ones who do have a lot of symptoms, and they do need listening to and uncovering. And then I try to find, where are these stuck beliefs? Where are these ideas that have come in over time, and they have created beliefs that cause emotions that add stress rather than make people lighter and happier. So there's a lot that you can do and unpick and where you can go. But I found I went on a retreat and it happened to have writing in it, free writing. I didn't really go for that reason. It was a mixture. It was in Costa Rica. It had some surfing and it had, it just looked pretty. And I thought, I'm just going to go a bit yoga.
We're with you.
Was not to like. And then it turned out we did a writing session every day and read it out to each other, and then got only positive comments. And and the more I did it, and I just felt this whole new thing. And then I was like, oh yeah, I remember when I was saying I wanted to write a book. I completely forgotten about that. So
this is it's like our soul has a song in it. We get it, we lose it, which kind of takes us on to the third thing, which is we wanted to say, what self-care routine. Now, a self-care routine always reminds me of like, I always use cleanser and clarifier when I do my face, so we're not interested in that bit.
No. But it's when you've actually pruned out the crapage that you don't need anymore. Where could you start? I mean, where did you start in terms of like? Because you were saying I just need to put something little back into my day.
The routine. You were talking about the writing. The building on the street. So So where would
the latex,
so it's kind of, where would you, if we were going to say where's your routine, this is where I started, but what would you say, people, where would your self-care routines,
an achievable something?
I have to have a new neighbour. Self-care just does cleansing for me every
does,
time.
It's your wellness,
because
isn't it?
it is a time that people have forgotten, women have forgotten how to look after themselves because they've been looking after everybody else, and now it's about, so if I was going to do something for myself, just some ideas.
Well, I think there's lots of different things that you can do, but I love what Tracy said, that, you were talking about, the stand-up. I mean, it's just finding that thing that sparks up within you.
Yeah.
You've done, like Jo said, that you've pruned away, and it's about allowing that to come forth, to experience different things. And again, like Tracy said, you don't like writing and journaling, gratitude journals and things like that. And same goes for holistic therapies and looking after yourself. And you said about the whisper, Anne, and sometimes if you don't listen to the whisper gets louder and louder and louder, and then something big and clanging will come in, and make sure that you take notice. So it's doing the inner work, it's doing the work on yourself, and that can be anything from going off on a retreat. I mean, I've been out on yoga retreats, and I've walked the Camino de Santiago. I've done lots of different things when I've been single. Going to park run, which you don't need to run, you can walk, and you can take that time out. You go out with the dog on your own if you've got a dog, or you just go and spend some time in nature. It can just be the smallest things, but it's making changes to that pattern of behavior, because we aren't our behavior, but we get caught up into behavioral patterns, and of course sometimes we don't know why we get stuck. So then it's looking at holistic therapies. I mean, I've done an immense amount. I've done things from EFT to training in Reiki to doing shamanic stuff to do training and qualifying as a coach, and all of these things that, when you adopt that growth mindset approach. But sometimes when you look at it too big, it can be overwhelming. So it's breaking it back down and just picking something. Taking something, and even if it's 10 minutes a day, to sit there and go, do you remember that book? Does everybody remember the book? Just give 5 minutes, and it's the elephant in the bath, and all she wants is 5 minutes to read a book, and the children keep on coming in. It was a children's book.
Right. I think you should write it as an adult book.
Yeah, that's an adult.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What you're picking up is this: you don't always know what you do want, but you know what you don't want, which comes back to Jo, which is the pruning. Chuck out your chintz. It's kind of like, we don't always know what we do want, but if you sometimes think, do I want, even if it's small, when I say, do you want tea or coffee? Make a decision. Don't just leave it up to the ether. See what someone makes you. Decide. And if you make tea and you decided you don't like it, go and make yourself a coffee. So you have to sometimes start on very small stuff if life's overwhelming. What about you, Tracy? How do you
do you think?
A
little thing that people could try. Apart from getting up and telling jokes, on stage.
I'd say as well, first you have to do what Jo said, make space. And I didn't go from making space to making jokes. I mean, I obviously was making jokes, but there was lots of steps in between. And you need to think again, as we've all said, it's not just the physical body, but I think that's really important. If you're in, that might be the first place. But then you've got to think mind, which means purpose, meaning, things that make you thrive, your spirit, and emotions. You've got to look after yourself on all those levels, but maybe start with the physical, because what I found, like in the menopause hit me really in the middle of COVID, and I just started putting on weight and weight and weight and weight, and I needed one thing to change, and the thing for me was I started walking with a friend, and that was about all you could do. So but I'd been at a point where I'd had a partial prolapse, so walking could be really painful, and I wanted to walk the Camino, and I thought, this is it, that dream has gone for me, I'm not gonna be able to do it. But a friend said, look, let's start walking. And where every other exercise regime has always fallen down for me, because I just, after about 3 weeks, I do less and less and less. With walking, it hit again all my strengths. It was the communal thing, doing it with a friend. We have a laugh, we put the worlds to right. It got my mind to right, and we still do it 5 years later, and we must have walked thousands of miles when you think about it. We do 3 miles every morning, Monday to Friday. In
Okay.
COVID, we did it
Wow.
7 days, and on the
Yeah.
Sunday we'd do it with gin in the water bottle, but that's a different story. It was good fun. And that was the first trigger that started things down a different path for me. And it doesn't seem much walking. It was massive, and it's what's led to everything
Yeah.
else. So if everything feels off kilter, go back to your basics of sleep. Look at your sleep, look at what you're eating, make sure you're moving, talk to people, drink plenty of water. Go back to those basics, do the
Yeah.
pruning, give the space, and then see what grows in your
That
garden.
sounds
Absolutely.
achievable. Sounds
I do
achievable.
like the word sieve you used there. I like that. I really like that idea that you have one, you're not ended up as a walker, you've ended up as a stand-up comedian, but walking was your sieve that allowed that to happen.
Mhm.
So I think perhaps finding your sieve, if you can't find your purpose, is probably a good
Yeah.
tip to take from what you said.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of good
So, Jo,
gardening analogies in all of it: pruning, fertilizer, clonic
hate gardening.
irrigation.
Hate
Well,
gardening.
but
That's the
we're
one
all
thing I'm
part of
not going to be
nature,
doing.
aren't we? We are all part of
Part of
nature. That's
nature.
it, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely.
So, Jo, what do you think? I mean, it's quite, you've got so many different viewpoints where you're coming at this from, and just to say some small thing that you've noticed might actually work for what could people consider to think about when they've done the pruning?
So the first thing I end up usually saying to people is start paying attention. Slow down enough to pay attention to your own behavior. And that could mean sitting down in the. I developed a routine of just sitting down with cacao, in the mornings, and whether when I was still with the family, everybody would be walking around me and I wouldn't care. I learned to meditate. Now I don't really do it that much, but just find something that gives you a little point to stop, or a breathing exercise or something, but also start to put little pauses in your day and start to notice when you go into thoughts overdrive, certain emotions that are not really that helpful, when that guilt comes in, or when that shame comes in, or when that negative critical voice comes in. Stop and go, oh, there we are. Is this helpful? Maybe not. And then you can choose. You can journal, you can stop, you can park it and come back to it. But I think it's and allowing uncomfortable feelings, messy emotions to be there without wanting to fixing them, without making them go away, because that's what I find a lot of people don't do.
Yeah.
They
I feel guilty. Squash it down.
Yeah. And I feel uncomfortable sitting down. A lot of people feel uncomfortable sitting down for 10 minutes and doing nothing. And then they start cleaning, tidying. I'm not saying that it couldn't be helpful sometimes, but notice what makes you uncomfortable and check why. It's that I think for me that's a really important piece, is to start to notice what you're doing and how you're doing it, and then give it or have a little pause, because that can give you so much wisdom and insight into yourself, and it hones your intuition, because you start to notice when something feels good, something feels off, and something feels a bit uncomfortable, but actually it's because it's new, or it's because it brings up an old memory, or so it's kind of know thyself, and then at the same time start to and do those things that you said. Go out into nature, move yourself, look after your physical health, maybe skip all the coffee in the morning and all the alcohol at night, the uppers and the downers, maybe reduce them a little bit, just so that you don't squeeze your system, and find friends, find people to share it with, is the other piece.
I think it's really important. And I just before we close, I know it's not about me, but I can remember when I was about 3 or 4 years old, walking around way before school, I used to walk around the garden with a little notebook and pen, and I couldn't write, I couldn't do anything. And I used to imagine people talking to me, and I used to write answers to them. And it was like, that's what I did. And then I went through life, and then I had to have a proper job and da 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 da. And when I got to there, here I am as a counsellor, sitting with my notebook and pen, talking to people, and I feel like I found my space. And that's just what you've all said about the whisper of your soul, because when you're 3, you're open to it. And then somebody says, well, you'll never make a living doing that.
Yes.
I can remember Frank Skinner, his dad, said, you know, you'll never make a, he said, you're going to be a loser in all your life. He said, you can never make a living just talking about football and telling gags. And I think it's one of those things that this is the time to get back to our soul. So I think we've had some really, really lovely things. It's been absolutely uplifting and inspiring. And I think we should do this again, because I think it's a lovely mix. But we've got pruning, sieving. We've got to listen to those whispers that our soul tells us and pay attention to those negativities. So I think these are really paying attention and deciding whether you want to keep the guilt or prune the guilt.
Yes,
and why you've got it.
And I was going to say, and just on the other side is you need to look at Sarah and see whether you need to wear latex as well.
Yes.
Well, I think this is a separate one. We unfortunately, as much as I'd love to, I think we've outdone it. But I think what we should do is perhaps look at our alter ego and just do a different one where we all turn up as the alter ego.
Oh yes. Oh yes, I should have worn my latex, shouldn't I, today? I really should have
wear my belly dance. I have to wear my Rudy Azar.
Yes, exactly.
I just decided that I'm one-sided. But thanks so much for coming on.
Brilliant.
It's been absolutely brilliant.
We're having our first panel, which has been absolutely fantastic. So thanks.
Thanks very much.